He had a gigantic army, but he was defeated by 168 men. He humiliated his brother before executing him. He offered tons of gold and silver for his freedom. Before the ships arrived, before gold became ransom currency, before a room was filled with treasures to save a life already condemned, there existed an empire. It was no ordinary kingdom. It was neither a fortified village nor a tribal confederation. It was the Tahuantinsuyo, the four regions united under one sun, one god, one man. It stretched from northern present-day Ecuador to central Chile, from the Amazon rainforest to the highest peaks of the Andes. It ruled over millions of people, connected by stone roads that coiled through chasms, rivers, and snow-capped mountains. It was the largest and most organized empire in the Americas. And at the heart of that empire, in the year 1525, everything stopped. It wasn't an invasion. It wasn't a rebellion. It was something silent, invisible, relentless: smallpox. It arrived before the Spaniards like an omen, and it took the man who held that world together, Huayna Capac, the Sapa Inca, the son of the sun. He died under mysterious circumstances, far from Cusco, in the north of the empire, in Quito, where he had been expanding the frontiers. With him went peace, with him went certainty, and with him chaos was born. Because Huayna Capac left no clear heir. He had two prominent sons. One was Huáscar, born in Cusco to a noble mother, the principal wife and daughter of a previous Sapa Inca. He was the legitimate heir according to tradition. He lived in the capital, surrounded by priests, nobles, and guardians of Inca law. He represented continuity, order, and purity of lineage. The other was Atahualpa. Born perhaps in the final years of the 15th century, Atahualpa grew up in the north in Quito, amid military campaigns, battles against rebellious peoples, and strategies forged on the battlefield. His mother was of royal blood, yes, but not from Cusco. Some say she was the daughter of the king of the Caranqui, a northern people recently conquered. Thus, to many in the capital, Atahualpa was half foreign, a mestizo of the empire, a man of the periphery. But Huayna Capac loved him. He trained him as a general. He gave him command over the empire's finest armies. And according to some chronicles, perhaps written by those who later supported him, on his deathbed, the old emperor reportedly said, "Let Huáscar rule in Cusco and Atahualpa in Quito," a division of the empire, a seed of war. In the Inca world, power was not shared. The Sapa Inca was not a symbolic king. He was a living god. His word was absolute law. His body was sacred. And the Tahuantinsuyo could have only one sun in the sky. Two suns meant darkness. From Cusco, Huáscar demanded submission. From Quito, Atahualpa remained silent. But that silence was not obedience, it was preparation. While Huáscar held ceremonies, received envoys, and proclaimed himself the rightful successor, Atahualpa trained his generals, Chalcuchimac, the relentless strategist, Quisquis, the lion of the north. He gathered loyal legions, soldiers hardened in battles against the Cañari, the Pasto, the Quilico. Men who knew not the comforts of Cusco, but the harshness of frontier warfare. And then came the first blow. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was an insult. Enraged by his brother's silence, Huáscar sent messengers to Quito with a humiliating order that Atahualpa send his finest artisans to Cusco as tribute, and that he himself travel unarmed and without escort to pledge allegiance. Instead of obeying, Atahualpa did something worse than refuse. He ordered the messengers killed, not quickly, but flayed alive. Then, with their still bleeding skins, he sent a message back to Cusco: "Send me more." The civil war had begun. It was no skirmish. It was slaughter on a continental scale. Two Inca armies, the most disciplined and efficient in the Americas, threw themselves against each other with a ferocity that astonished even Spanish chroniclers years later. Entire peoples were wiped out, fields were burned, rivers ran red with blood. Huáscar had prestige, the backing of Cusco's priesthood, and legitimacy. Atahualpa had the fire of the periphery, the loyalty of his generals, and superior military tactics. And in every battle, Atahualpa won. At Chimborazo, Quisquis crushed the Cusco army. At Huánuco Pampa, Chalcuchimac trapped Huáscar's forces in a valley and exterminated them. Huáscar, increasingly desperate, made mistakes. He executed northern nobles in Cusco. He humiliated envoys. He lost allies. Meanwhile, Atahualpa advanced implacably like an Andean storm. In 1532, after years of war, Atahualpa entered Cusco, not as an invader but as a conqueror. Huáscar was captured, humiliated, and chained. His family was massacred. It's said Atahualpa forced him to watch as his children were killed one by one. Some accounts claim he made him kneel in the courtyard of the Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun, and spat in his face. The empire was united. Atahualpa was the Sapa Inca, but his victory was fleeting. Because while he fought his brother in the Andes on the other side of the world, in a small port in Spain, a man named Francisco Pizarro had already set sail with 168 men, 62 horses, and an ambition without limits. And they were drawing near. Atahualpa did not know it, but his empire, just reunified with so much blood, was about to face something even the Inca gods had not foreseen. Men arriving from across the sea, riding beasts that looked like dragons, carrying thunder in their hands and hunger in their souls. Peace lasted mere weeks. History awaited him in Cajamarca. And there, in a cold plaza surrounded by mountains, the last Sapa Inca would meet his fate, clad in iron and speaking a tongue no one understood. November 1532. The air in the Andes is cold, dry, sharp. The eternal snows of the peaks glitter under a sun the Incas call Inti, Father and God. In the valley of Cajamarca, a modest city of stone and adobe, surrounded by green hills and singing rivers, the victorious army of Atahualpa camps. 8,000 men, perhaps more. Some say up to 30,000. Battle-hardened, seasoned, loyal. They have just defeated the emperor's brother. They have just unified the largest empire the Americas have ever seen. And now they rest, because they have no enemies, because they believe the world is finally in order. But something strange has arrived. Confusing reports race among messengers. White, bearded men riding gigantic beasts have landed on the coast. They carry weapons that spit fire. They wear armor like fish scales, but made of metal. They speak an incomprehensible tongue, and they do not come to trade. They come, asking for the Lord of the world. Atahualpa, from his royal tent draped in feathers and fine cloth, listens with curiosity, not fear. Why should he fear? He is the Sapa Inca, son of the sun. His word is law from the southern deserts to the northern jungles. A handful of foreigners is not a threat, it's a curiosity. Perhaps, he thinks, they are envoys from a distant king. Perhaps they wish to pay homage. He sends emissaries, observe, inquire, return. The emissaries return with astonishing tales. They report these men eat bread that never rots, that they worship a god nailed to a cross, that they drink a black liquid that drives them mad, and that they possess a book, a magical object that speaks without a mouth. Intrigued, Atahualpa permits one of them to come to his camp, a Dominican friar named Fray Vicente de Valverde. He arrives holding a cross in one hand and a breviary in the other. And with him, translated by an indigenous man named Felipe, who learned Spanish on the coast, comes a message. It is the requerimiento, an absurd text written years earlier in Castile, demanding all peoples of the world submit to the King of Spain and the Pope in Rome, or be destroyed. Valverde, with theatrical solemnity, reads it before the Inca emperor, as if preaching to a flock of ignorant lambs. Atahualpa listens. He frowns. At the end he asks, "Who has granted you this authority? Who told you that you may speak for my land?" Valverde points to the breviary and replies, "Here is the word of God." Atahualpa takes the book. He looks at it, weighs it, holds it to his ear. Then, hearing nothing, he throws it to the ground. "This object does not speak," he says. "It is a lie. How can it contain the word of a god if it makes no sound?" It is the moment everything shatters. Valverde, furious, steps back. He shouts to Pizarro, hidden in the buildings around the plaza, "Come out, for this heretic has rejected the faith of Christ." And then the unthinkable happens. From the narrow streets of Cajamarca, from the stone houses, from the dark doorways, the Spaniards emerge. They are not hundreds, not thousands. They are 168 men. But they bring horses, they bring arquebuses, they carry steel swords, and they have a diabolical plan. Atahualpa, confident, has come unarmed, surrounded only by nobles and servants, with a ceremonial, not military, escort. His soldiers, camped outside the city, carry no weapons. Out of respect for the emperor, by sacred tradition, they do not enter the plaza armed where he holds audience. It is a perfect trap. The Spaniards attack without warning. The horses, never before seen by the Incas, appear as monsters with dog-like heads and deer-like bodies. They charge at full speed, knocking down nobles, trampling bodies underfoot. The arquebuses unleash thunder that wounds without touching. The swords cut like lightning. Within minutes, the plaza becomes a slaughterhouse. Atahualpa, on his golden litter, watches as his court is massacred. He shouts orders, but there is no army within the city. His men, unarmed and unprepared, cannot respond. The Spaniards cut straight through to him. One of them, a soldier named Hernando Pizarro, leaps onto his litter. He grabs him by the hair, drags him to the ground. Others surround him. They remove his mascapaicha, the red fringe symbolizing his divinity, and bind him. In less than an hour, the Sapa Inca is a prisoner. The most powerful empire in the Americas has fallen without a real battle. The Spaniards, still trembling from the panic they themselves incited, barricade themselves in a house on the plaza. Outside, the Inca army, thousands of warriors, surrounds the city. They could wipe the Spaniards out in a day, but they do not, because their god is captive. And in the Inca worldview, to kill the Sapa Inca is to kill the sun. The world would end. So they wait, they pray, they plead. Atahualpa, in his makeshift cell, does not weep, does not beg. He asks, "What do you want?" Pizarro, cunning and greedy, smiles and replies, "We want your friendship." But both know the truth. What they want is gold. And so Atahualpa, the man who has just unified an empire with blood and steel, makes the most audacious offer in history. "I will fill an entire room with gold, up to the height of my outstretched arm, and 2 more rooms with silver. In exchange, set me free." Pizarro feigns hesitation, but in his mind he has already won, because he knows a captive emperor is worth more than a free one. And while Atahualpa's messengers race across the empire, stripping temples, palaces, and tombs of their treasures, in Cajamarca begins the slow agony of a world that no longer exists. The gold arrives, tons of it. Masks of gods, ceremonial vessels, plaques from the Temple of the Sun, all melted down, all handed over. The Spaniards become drunk with wealth, but also with fear, because each passing day brings more Inca soldiers to the surrounding hills. And because deep down they know they cannot keep Atahualpa alive. A captive god is dangerous, a free god is mortal. And so, the trial begins. It is not a fair trial. It is a farce written in advance. They accuse him of heresy, idolatry, murdering his brother and conspiring against the Spaniards. Bought witnesses, fabricated evidence, a verdict sealed before the trial even starts. When Atahualpa hears of it, he is not surprised. He knows his fate no longer depends on him. He asks only one thing: will you burn me? Because in Inca tradition, if the body is destroyed by fire, the soul cannot return to the world of the ancestors. It is lost forever. The friars tell him, if you accept baptism, you will die by garrote, not by fire. He accepts and takes a Christian name, Juan. Thus, the last Sapa Inca dies as Juan Atahualpa, baptized, forgiven, tamed. But in the mountains, in the communities, in the hearts of his people, he remains the son of the sun. And his death is not the end. It is the spark. On July 26, 1533, in the main plaza of Cajamarca, under an Andean sky that does not weep but watches, Atahualpa is led to the gallows. He does not walk with his head bowed. He walks with the dignity of one who has owned the world. His bare feet touch the earth his ancestors shaped with their hands. His eyes scan the faces of the Spaniards. Some avoid his gaze, others meet it with a mix of greed and guilt. They have dressed him in simple clothes. They have cut his hair, the symbol of his rank. But nothing can erase who he is, the last Sapa Inca. The sun has stopped shining for the Tahuantinsuyo. They tie him to a post. A friar murmurs prayers in Latin. An executioner tightens the garrote. A moment of silence, and then the dry crack of the wooden beam crushing his windpipe. Atahualpa does not scream. He does not struggle. He bites the air one last time and exhales. He is dead. The Spaniards breathe in relief. They have eliminated the heart of Inca power. They have shattered the axis of the Andean world. Now they think only the spoils remain to be gathered, but they make a fatal mistake. They believe that when the head falls, the body dies. They do not understand that the Tahuantinsuyo was not merely a political empire. It was an entire cosmos, a fabric of roads, rituals, calendars, oral memories, sacred loyalties. And that cosmos does not die with one man. It reorganizes, it resists, it hides. While the Spaniards divide the gold, vats of molten metal filling chests and sacks, sparking quarrels among the very conquerors themselves, in Cusco, a young man of royal blood is pulled from the shadows. His name is Tupac Hualpa, younger brother of Atahualpa. The Spaniards crown him as a puppet king, a symbol of continuity to pacify the Incas. But it is a farce. The boy, terrified, lasts only a few weeks. He dies, poisoned, they say, or of sorrow. So they install another, Manco Inca, brother of Huáscar. They clothe him in the mascapaicha, they seat him on the throne of the Coricancha. They make him believe he will be the new Sapa Inca, ally of the Spaniards, mediator between two worlds. But Manco is no child. He is a strategist and he watches. He sees how the Spaniards desecrate temples, abuse women, demand tribute and ransack huacas, the sacred places, in search of more gold. He sees how they treat the empire as plunder, not as a kingdom, and he decides to act. In 1536, Manco Inca rebels. It is not a protest. It is total war. He gathers tens of thousands of warriors. He lays siege to Cusco for 10 months. He cuts the roads, burns bridges, drives the Spaniards into their fortresses. For a moment, it seems the empire is reborn. But the Spaniards have horses, they have steel, and above all they have indigenous allies, because not all peoples love the Tahuantinsuyo. The Cañari, the Huanca, the Chachapoyas, many had been conquered by the Incas through blood and fire. See in the Spaniards an opportunity for vengeance. They fight alongside them. And that alliance, more than swords, is what sustains the conquest. Wounded and betrayed, Manco retreats into the mountains. East of Cusco, in the high jungle, he founds Vilcabamba, the last Inca capital. There, amid mist and humidity, he resists. For nearly 40 years, 4 more Sapa Incas will rule from Vilcabamba, Sairi Tupac, Tito Cusi, and finally Tupac Amaru. Meanwhile, Spain consolidates its rule. Cusco becomes a Spanish city. Churches are built atop temples. New laws are imposed. Millions are baptized. But in the countryside, in remote villages, in souls, the Inca gods do not die. They disguise themselves. They hide behind Catholic saints. They endure in songs, in planting cycles, in the movement of the stars. The empire has fallen, but the people survive. And it all began with the death of a man who promised to fill a room with gold. The Spaniards thought the gold was the prize, but the true prize was the time Atahualpa gave them by accepting captivity, because while they counted coins, the empire unraveled, but also prepared itself. And in that narrow space between fall and resistance, the myth is born. Because Atahualpa is not remembered only as a defeated emperor. He is remembered as the one who faced the impossible with dignity, the one who, even knowing he was lost, negotiated with kings from another world, the one who, before death, chose how to die. Later, Quechua chronicles say that before he died, Atahualpa cursed the Spaniards. Your riches will turn to ash, your children will kill each other, and you will never find peace in this land. And to some extent, it came true. Pizarro was assassinated by rival Spaniards in Lima, stabbed 20 times. His brothers died in civil wars. The gold brought madness, betrayal, ruin. But Atahualpa's true legacy is not the curse. It is the question he left hanging in the air. What is an empire when its god is chained? And the answer, still echoing in the Andes, is this: an empire is not a king, it is a people. And as long as the people remember, the sun will rise again. Official history claims the Inca Empire ended the day Atahualpa was killed, but the true history, the one told in the fields, in native tongues, in the threads of Andean looms, says that Tahuantinsuyo never died. It only learned to walk in silence. After the execution, the Spaniards marched toward Cusco as if entering an empty house. But it wasn't empty. It was watched over. By ghosts, yes, but also by flesh and blood men who refused to accept that the world had changed forever. From Vilcabamba, deep in the cloud forest, Manco Inca launched not only arrows, but a message. As long as there is an Inca, there is hope. For decades, that refuge was more than a city. It was an act of symbolic resistance. There, ceremonies were preserved. There, harawis were sung. There, memory was woven. Spanish chroniclers called it the tyrant's stronghold. Andean people called it the last light of the sun. But Spain tolerates no shadows. In 1572, Viceroy Francisco de Toledo decided to end what he called that farce. He gathered an army, crossed rivers, scaled mountains, burned allied villages, and reached Vilcabamba. The Sapa Inca ruling at the time was Tupac Amaru, grandson or nephew of Atahualpa. Bloodlines blur in the mist of time. Young, brave, but without sufficient forces, he tried to flee. They captured him on the banks of the Madre de Dios River. They brought him to Cusco, shackled, hands bound, like a common criminal. And there, in the same plaza where the Incas once celebrated Inti Raymi, they put him on trial. The trial lasted days. They accused him of rebellion, idolatry, and maintaining diabolical superstitions. Tupac Amaru denied nothing. He simply said, "I am Inca. This land is mine by divine right." Toledo did not hesitate. He ordered a public execution. On September 24, 1572, a crowd gathered in Cusco. Spaniards, mestizos, indigenous people. Many wept in silence. Others prayed. Tupac Amaru mounted the scaffold with his head held high. Before dying, he asked to speak, and he uttered words that were etched into the soul of his people. Christ died for all men. Why should I not die for my people? They beheaded him. His head was impaled on a pike along the road to Vilcabamba. His children were imprisoned. His followers were scattered or killed. That day officially the last Sapa Inca died, but something strange happened. Instead of fading, the memory of Atahualpa, Manco, and Tupac Amaru multiplied. It became legend, song, promise. For centuries afterward, every indigenous rebellion in the Andes invoked the name of an Inca. In 1780, José Gabriel Condorcanqui, a mestizo educated in Jesuit schools, took the name Tupac Amaru II and led the largest rebellion in colonial America. Before being torn apart by the Spaniards, he shouted, "I will die, but my cause will not." And it did not. Because the name Tupac echoed again in the 20th century, in indigenous movements, in Quechua poets, in leaders demanding land, justice, and dignity, and in the 21st century, in a rapper from California who adopted the name Tupac Shakur, carrying, perhaps unknowingly, the echo of an Andean emperor into the streets of the world. Atahualpa built no cathedrals, wrote no books, signed no treaties, but his death became the first mirror of colonial injustice. And in that mirror, America saw itself. Today, in Cajamarca, where he was captured and executed, there is a plaza bearing his name. In Cusco, tourists pass by the Coricancha, unaware that once a god walked there. But in villages, in communities, in Pagapu ceremonies, when coca is offered to Pachamama, his name is still spoken. Because Atahualpa represents something deeper than defeat, dignity in the face of the abyss. He did not know who the Spaniards were. He did not know their ships, their cannons, their bottomless ambition, but he knew who he was. And until the very end, he refused to pretend he was less. He was deceived, betrayed, judged by laws he did not understand, but he never humbled himself. And in a world where power is measured by gold, armies and empires left behind, his legacy is intangible yet indestructible. The certainty that there are causes worth losing everything for. Spain left, the viceroyalty fell, republics were born, but the Andes remain. And in every sunrise over the snow-capped peaks, in every planting of corn, in every child who secretly learns Quechua, the sun rises again, not as an empire, but as a living memory. Atahualpa died in 1533, but his story has not yet ended. Have you ever wondered, what would have become of America if the Tahuantinsuyo had not been divided and had faced the Spaniards united?